It's time to see kind of where we're at, what's working, what's not working, et cetera, et cetera. So an audit is basically a look at where you're at in your business right now. And we're going to do some pretty generic examples here because I don't have, the bandwidth, unfortunately, to look at every single one of you guys individually. But what we will be looking at is the example of how to perform an audit all the way through to, how to create leverage in your life. And we're going to talk about a bunch of these things. So it's going to be a lot of fun today. So what an audit is a look at where are you at right now. So let's say you had a goal to do 30 deals this year. Are you on track for it? What kind of performance are you going to need for the remainder of the year for you to be able to hit that goal? We're going to look at, where have your deals come from thus far? And now, contrary to what a lot of different coaches might tell you, I do not believe in the idea of, spending time where you're not being multiply rewarded for that time. So I'm never going to be the type of coach or the type of trainer or whatever that's going to say, hey, listen, if you're struggling in this bucket, that's where you need to put your time. It's going to be really beneficial for you to put your time there. No, I really want you guys to focus on what it is that you're good at. I think everybody has certain things that they're extremely good at. And if you're getting results from that, we're going to try and find a way for you to be able to multiply your time to be able to do more of it. And if you're struggling in certain areas, we're going to find out why. And we're going to see if we can create some leverage in your life in that area. Because it could be that, you're okay at it, but there's a lot of people that can do it a lot better than you. And if that's the case, we're going to try and find that leverage in your life as well. So you can't really expect to know how to get to point B if you don't know where your current location is. You open up Google Maps right now and you say you want to get to downtown. But if Google Maps has no idea where you are, it can't give you a proper roadmap. Does that make sense? So we need to find out where point A is. Okay? So the first question that I have for you guys is, how many sales are you at this year? And what buckets did it come from? Right? We all know the 3 buckets. What are they, guys? Live audience, help me out. There's Sphere, absolutely. You guys like my new whiteboard? I think it's pretty awesome. So there's Sphere, there's online. What's the last one? It's my favorite one. What's the last one? Prospecting, absolutely. So these are the 3 buckets. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is, out of your transactions that you've done thus far this year, let's use the same kind of situation that we were talking about just before. So let's say you had a goal to do, let's talk easy math. Let's say you had a goal to do 30 transactions this year, okay? And you're a little bit behind, market's a little tight, and you're at 10 transactions so far, okay? So you've done 10 transactions. Now, so where did those come from? You've done, sorry guys, still working on the wheels on this thing. So you've done 10 transactions so far, and 8 of them have come from Sphere, 2 of them are from online, and 0 of them are from prospecting. Show of hands, does this look similar to anybody else's deals this year in terms of percentages? Yeah, a little bit. This is one of the most common splits that I see, is like an almost nothing on prospecting, about 20 to 35% from online, and then everything else coming from your sphere of influence. This is a pretty normal split. So in terms of percentages, we're looking at 80% here, 20% here, and 0% here. So after we're looking at the 3 buckets, is what activities are you performing to generate these numbers? And again, everybody should be doing this on their own little notepad or inside of their computer or what have you. If you let's say are a newer agent, and let's say you have no transactions whatsoever, you have nothing to put here, that's okay. What you should be putting there instead is what your activities are, which is what we're going to get into right now, is how many maybe signatures you've had. You could use some kind of number there that would justify a result, okay? So you've got your Sphere online prospecting. What kind of activities are you performing on a weekly and monthly basis to be able to generate what it is that you're doing here? Okay. So when it comes to prospecting, I hope that if you're getting 0% of your sales and 0 sales every single year from prospecting, that you're not doing almost anything there. But let's say you are. Let's say you're doing like 2 to 5 hours per week. And you're being extremely real with yourself right now. This is the time when you're doing an audit of your business. This is the time where you have to get really, really real with yourself. And sometimes getting real with yourself is saying that you're doing almost nothing for these online leads and you're waiting for stuff to kind of pop out of nowhere. That might be you getting real with yourself. When you're looking at your sphere and 80% of your business is coming from your sphere and you're looking at that being like, oh my God, the only activities that I've done is I've done a couple of pop buys, let's say, or something. You have to get real with yourself of what it is that you're doing to be able to generate what it is that you're doing here. So your online leads, you're talking maybe, I want to say maybe 4 hours a week in follow-up. And then in addition to the 4 hours a week of follow-up, you've got 1 day per month, like your Boomtown day or something like that. Okay. And in your sphere, what do you think this fictitious person is doing to generate 80% of their business from their sphere? Are they doing a lot of stuff? Are they kind of flying by the seat of their pants? What do we think this person's doing? Yeah, they're doing daily social media. What else are they doing for that? You can unmute yourself, throw it in the chat. What else is this person doing to generate 80% of the business from their sphere? No? Sure, yeah, they got drip emails going to their sphere, like a newsletter maybe or something like that. And yeah, like I said, they're probably doing the occasional pop buys. They don't really know, but they are actually popping by. They're only their A+ clients, but they don't really know because they haven't really organized it in that way. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know. But this is awesome. Now we understand kind of what it is that we're doing on a weekly basis. You know, in theory, we're supposed to work 40 hours a week, right? As realtors, we probably should be doing closer to 50 or 60. But the idea is that, you know, the average work week is going to be 40 hours. So we know that we're spending 5 in prospecting. We're probably spending the equivalent of 4 to 6 if you include the 1 day per month for your online leads. And the rest were spent either doing absolutely nothing at all, or we're doing some of the stuff here. But a lot of this is passive, right? The drip emails, that's fully passive. The pop buys are excellent. That's a great thing to do. And your daily social media posts for a lot of you guys is insanely important. So I think that's great. And that's probably, you know, an hour a day. So call it, you know, probably, not an hour. Call it 30 minutes a day. So call it like this is 3 hours. Your drip emails is 0. And your pop buy is probably like another 2 hours a week if you're doing them properly. So there you go. You got like a 20-hour work week here. But so now what you want to do, and if this is possible, right, is how many contacts are you making from each of these buckets on a weekly basis? So if you are doing 2 to 5 hours a week, let's just call it 5 hours a week. Let's say this person's really, really bad at prospecting. So he's doing 5 hours a week. How many contacts is he making? Let's say he's manually dialing. He's not using Mojo. We know the answer to this. What's the answer? He's doing 5 hours of prospecting, Severa. How many contacts is he making in 5 hours? No, he's not using Mojo. 50? Yeah. Yep, 50. 50 contacts. Cool. 50 contacts per week. Online, you're doing 4 hours of follow-up and 1 day per month. How many contacts is that per week? Average it out. Obviously, you're not going to get the same rate of contact as you would here. So it's not going to be 40. My official guess is going to be 20 plus your day, probably 15, right? Divide that. So I'm saying 25 maybe per week. What do you guys think? Give or take? Call it 20. You guys want me to say 20, huh? Okay. 20 contacts. That's cool. In your sphere, obviously the contacts are going to be very minimal because you're doing, you know, a few pop buys here and there. You're doing two per week. That's probably not going to be longer than, sorry, you're not going to get more than, let's say, 2, 3 per week there. You're just social media. Unfortunately, you can't count those as contacts. So what? 5, maybe 10? I'm gonna go with 10. So now what you want to do is you want to look back on your time. And this is where the math kind of plays in a little bit, is how many appointments have you gone on from each of these buckets to be able to generate what it is that you've got. Now, what are we trying to do? We're trying to find out what all of your averages are for the year so that you can create, daily activities that you need to do based on math so that you're attacking this thing with a little bit of purpose and a little bit of mathematical backing. Okay? So we know that your 50 contacts, if you do, what is that, like 2,500 contacts in the year or something like that? So if you're going to make 20 and you're converting at 0%, it's pretty obvious what you should probably start leveraging out or stop doing. Hopefully nobody is in this zone. It's very difficult to be in this zone, by the way, because just by repetition, you get quite good. Just by repetition. So prospecting wise, hopefully you've got a little bit better numbers than that. But in this case, this would be something that we're going to talk about how to leverage and what to do and all of that fun stuff. With your online things here, 20 contacts times, let's say 40 weeks in the year. 20 times 40 is what? 200 times 4, 800, does that make sense? 800 contacts in the year, that's awesome. If you're going to do 800 contacts of the year, and you're going to get, wow, that's really, really, only 4, it's like 0.5% conversion rate. It's not great, but it's not bad when you consider how many leads you must have had to have to make those contacts. That's all right. And then you got your sphere, which is clearly kicking ass. So let's start analyzing, shall we? So what we're going to do before we go into the individual kind of what to do, what to leverage, what to give up on each of these sections, I want to go over with you guys what the math is again. So I think it's really important for everybody to know this math inside, outside, upside down when we're talking about that. So what we're trying to find out for each of these buckets is how many deals do you want to come from these buckets? So let's say we still want to hit our 30 deals. Okay. Now, if we want these things to be the same percentages, because we know we're not going to do anything on prospecting because apparently we're inept when it comes to picking up the phone and calling, what is the percentage? Give me 80% of 30, please, somebody. I think it's like 22 or something. I don't know. 80% of
8 is 24.
24. So we need to make 24 of these. Okay. Awesome. Online, 20% of that. Well, we know that that's 6, right? Yeah, perfect. So we know how many of these we need to get. So the math is really, really simple. All you need to know are your numbers. Okay. So the first thing is we need to know the goal of how many transactions, which we just found out. Okay. Divide that by your listing conversion. So how many listings is it going to take for you to make a sale? Out of your sphere, even in a market like this, where it's a little bit slower or whatever, your listing conversion is going to be very, very close to 100%. So for easy math, we're going to call it 100%. Okay. So we know that that's your number. So what we do is we divide 24 by 0.110, you get 24. So basically it's still 24. So we're carrying over the 24. After that, we divide it by your appointment conversion. So take a look back in your last 6-7 months. How many listing appointments did you go to on your sphere? How many listing appointments did you go on? And how many either decided they didn't want to sell? That's completely out of your control, but you still have to pick it. You still have to use it because it still counts. Everything counts. So now, let's say to be able to get these eight sales or eight listings, let's say they all came from listings. You got 8 listings. You had to go on 12, let's say, right? So what's that, 80%? Yes, no, maybe so? I'm not good at math. 80% of, fuck, I don't know, whatever. Let's say you have to go at 12, okay? So what's 8 over 12? 66%. Cool. So you take 24, you divide that by 0.66. What's that? No, divide by. Yep. 36. So you need to go on 36 appointments to be able to get 24 listings. Makes sense, right? So now we need to know what your phone conversion is. In this case, it's a little bit dicey because it's not all about just picking up the phone and calling. It's a lot easier to do these numbers with something like prospecting. But inside of Sphere, if you know how many people you need to speak to, how many pop buys did you have to do to be able to get the listing appointments that you went on in the last 6 or 7 months? This is where, again, you have to be extremely real with yourself. Even if the pop buy you went on, even if that connection that you did or whatever didn't feel like it was really, it shouldn't have counted, I didn't have a great conversation with him, the wife wasn't home, doesn't matter, count it all. Count absolutely everything, okay? So now, let's say, especially in a Sphere type of thing, let's say you're talking maybe 5%, which should be so fucking high. Excuse my swearing. Oops, sorry, cat. Anywho, let's say you're rocking 5%, which would just be insane. So you take 36 and you divide that by 0.05. John, help me out. 720. Now you have how many people you need to speak to, not individual people, just means how many conversations you have to have. Because remember, it's not all about just who you speak to and them selling their house. It's who they know and who they might encounter, or who they're going to talk to, or whatever. So,
sorry, when you say speak to,
yeah,
can that be like DMs in social media, or it has to be a phone call?
If you want to count them, it all depends how you count them. So the question from the live audience is, would a direct message on social media, either on Instagram or Facebook, count as a contact when you're talking about your Sphere? If it does, you have to track it. So if you're counting that every single time and it reflects in these numbers, then yes, absolutely. But if you're not counting them, then you can't start counting them now. Does that make sense? So when you're looking back at exactly, you have to factor it in again for sure. So out of that 720, now what we do is, how many weeks are left in the year? So let's say we've got all of August, so that's 4. All of September, 8. October, November, 16. I'd call it maybe 18 weeks left. So what's 720 divided by 18? 40. 40 per week. Heck of a lot more than the 10 that you're doing currently, right? So we're going to talk about how to multiply your time in a minute, but this is the math. It's super, super easy. Get your listing conversion percentage, which in this case is 100%. So 24 is 24. Cool. You get your appointment conversion, 66%. So in order to get 24 listings, you got to go on 36 appointments. Boom. Awesome. And what's your conversation conversion? How many people do you have to speak to be able to get that appointment? Well, in this case, you're converting it around 5%. So you divide that by 5%, you get 720. Divide by the 18 to 20 weeks left in the year, you got 40 per week that you need to get. Simple enough, right? Moving right along. Oops, shouldn't have erased that, but that's all right. So your other section, online leads, you wanted 6 from that, right? So we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did, okay? If you need 6 sales from that, how many buyer's contracts? It's the same thing, right? It's like, how many buyer's contracts do you need to have signed if we're talking primarily the online generated leads or buyers, which in most places they are, right? So if you need 6 deals, how many contracts need to be signed to be able to get 6? Well, in this case, it's probably not 100%. So in this case, you're probably going to have to get 10 signed. So you need 10 signed to close 6. Make sense? So then we apply the same math. What's your conversion rate on your appointments? I imagine it's probably not as high as a Sphere like this. A Sphere like this is, you're closing at 66%. That's because you're a freaking savage. You're a sniper. You're a ninja. Whereas with an online lead, you're bringing them into the office. I don't know under what predication that you brought them in. I'm whipping out the calculator right now. So let's say you're running the industry average, which is about 30%. So you're going to take the 10 signatures that you need, divide by 3, pretty easy. Well, divide by 0.33. So you're going to get, we're going to round up, you're going to need to get 34 appointments. 34 appointments to be able to get 10, to be able to get 6. Now, what's your call conversion? to be able to get those 34 in-person one-on-one meetings with a potential buyer. Again, I don't know what it might be, but let's run on your averages, okay? So 34 appointments needed, and let's say you're closing at the magical number of 1.5%. Is that right? Jesus, that's crazy. 2,250 for easy math. That's how many people you need to call. You're closing at 1.5%. You just got to get better. The cool thing is when you plug all this stuff into an Excel calculator and you change one variable, everything changes. And it's really exciting because if you just get 0.5% better, this number shrinks down to like 1,500, which is pretty awesome. So you take 2,250, divide by how many weeks are left in the year, 112. That's how many people you need to speak to. The cool thing is, what a lot of people don't realize, and this is what really excites me as a trainer and coach, is that by doing these actions, just by doing it with the expectation based on the numbers that you have currently, as you continue to repeat the process, you actually do get better. So you're attacking it based on I have to do this. But as you progress, the number actually gets smaller and smaller, but you don't realize it because you're in the groove of going after this. And it's like shoot for the stars, land on the clouds kind of thing. But the only difference is it's like you're starting off with engine fuel and halfway up your rocket fuel kicks in, which is really cool. So that's how you're going to be able to get to that goal of having 20% of your deals come from online, which is going to need to be 6 and 24 coming from your sphere and nothing coming from prospecting. Take some of that prospecting. Now, the reality is we could have allocated absolutely anything to prospecting and done the exact same math. But all this should really be doing for you guys is showing you how important it is, how absolutely important it is to be able to track your numbers. Because if you guys aren't tracking everything that you're doing on a weekly basis, daily basis, whatever, it's going to be very difficult to understand where you need to go next, where to point your sales. If you're just flying without any direction, it's going to be very difficult to know where to spend your time. And I remember when I first got licensed, 14 years ago or whatever, I had this horrible, horrible feeling, and I'm sure we've all felt it. It's you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I'm a realtor now. Okay, now what? It's a horrible feeling to get. And it's basically just, you're a little lost. You don't know what to do with your time. But what you will eventually learn is as you do more and more things, you get more feedback from different places of your business, and you're going to find out where your time is worth the most. And obviously, in this case, based on somebody doing 80% of their business from their sphere of influence, this is where their time is worth the most. If somebody's providing nothing, let's say it wasn't 8, let's say it was 7, okay? And this was 70. That's 2, whatever. This was 1, okay? There's a couple things. So first of all, obviously the time is the best spent inside the sphere of influence, but that comes with little asterisks. Can people get lucky in real estate? Yes or yes? People can get really lucky in real estate, and that's awesome. That's great. Use that lucky. I always say you got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good. So you want to use that to carry your momentum forward. That's awesome. But when you're doing the audit, again, that's why I'm going to say it a bazillion times, you have to be extremely real with yourself, because you may know deep in your heart of hearts that you did nothing for this. There were some years when my dad was in business that he would do like 30, 36 deals in a year, and he did nothing for those things. And if he was doing an audit, he would have to be real with himself and say, I did nothing to do this. There's no way for me to multiply this or repeat it again next year because I have nothing to replicate. I just had the phone ring a bunch of times this year. And that's the worst possible place you can be in because it provides no power to you. If you're doing the things that you know you should be doing here, like posting on social media every single day, you're hosting whatever, you're doing this, you're doing that, that's all cool. That's all documentable things that you can create returns on investment with. That's all awesome stuff. If you're not doing anything over here, that you have to be real with yourself and say, I'm not doing it, the phone's just ringing. Online, it's the same thing. Are you actually taking these leads seriously? Are you showing up to your accountability calls? Are you following up appropriately? Are you sending them to the preferred lender? Are you doing all of that stuff? If you are, great. If you're not, now's the time to be real with yourself. Are you giving enough time and energy to these places for you to be able to be audited on them? For prospecting, this is where a lot of people will say, and this is why I talk about this so much, is because the caveat here is that a lot of people will say, well, I'm not getting any of my business from prospecting and I'm spending all this time prospecting. But when they actually look at how much time they spend prospecting, they're spending nothing. They're spending zero time. But they'll be the first people to tell you it doesn't work. Because they're like, no, it doesn't. Prospecting is not for me, man. I'll say, well, what do you mean it's not for you? Well, it doesn't work. Okay, tell me how it doesn't work. Well, I tried it for a week. Okay, come on now. Come on now. I remember I was coaching this guy back in the day. This is when I was at KW. And this guy comes in, and I swear to God, he called expireds for like 2 days. Not even 2 days. I wanted maybe a day and a half. And like not big days. I'm talking like an hour. And then the third day he comes in late to the lead generation session. Comes in late, shows up, and he says, oh, you guys are cold calling? That doesn't work. And me and John are there, and me and John had an amazing year. We like slayed the phones. So we're like, what do you mean? He's like, doesn't work, man. I'm going to go door knocking. That's what works. And I'm like, yeah, all right, bud. You know, go door knock. That's awesome. I mean, any form of lead gen is great. So power to you. And yeah, his door knocking didn't work well either. I wonder why. Probably because he did it for a day and a half and stopped. So yeah, it's just, you have to give things long enough time to create a real sample size for you to go off of. If you don't have an adequate sample size, you're pretty screwed. There's not really a way to make a mathematical end to something when you don't have a good enough sample size. So it's the same thing if you're looking at studies. If you're looking at studies for, you know, what to eat, not to eat, what things to avoid. Oh, sugar's bad. This is bad. All this stuff's bad. Okay, cool. But like, how big was the control study? Was it 15 people? Was it 10 people? That's a crappy sample size. When someone says, oh, these leads aren't working, cool, how many did you call? 40 of them. Ooh, that's nothing. You're not even a baby. You're like a little teeny tiny, you're like a fetus in the game. You know what I mean? So you have to spend the time and get the reps in. So now let's say that this person, this fictitious person that we're auditing right now, let's say he is doing or she is doing a great job in all of these categories. And these are just the results that have happened. But the sample size is good. He or she's been busting it all 7 months. And this is what she's got. And so with that, if I know that she is doing 5 hours prospecting a week and she's only gotten one deal from it, hey, maybe she is objectively pretty bad at prospecting. But you know what she's really good at or he's really good at? Sphere work. That's returning dividends. Now, what I would do, obviously, and what you should do for your own audits is look a little bit deeper on every single transaction. When you're looking at the 7 that came in from the sphere, take a really hard look at it. Okay, where did this really come from? Go into the nitty-gritty of the lead source, because it's all well and good to put into buckets, but when we report our sales inside of our Google form, it's what bucket and what is the precise lead source? Because I want to know from online, did it come from Google paid ads? Did it come from Facebook? Did it come from natural search engine optimization? Did it come from social media? All of those things, because we have all these things generating leads to our website, and we can find out from a nitty-gritty perspective, where did it come from? Because I want to know from a team leader standpoint, where's my money best placed to be able to provide the best quality leads? It's the same thing with your sphere. Where did it come from? Oh, it came from church. Okay, well, it came from, it's because I sponsored a basketball team, or it came because I did this, or it just came to me naturally, so we don't really know, but it is sphere. Okay, cool. There's a lot of things that can play into the natural thing. And sometimes it is luck, but other times it's just consistency. It's consistency in social media. It's consistency in being around people in terms of social events, networking events, things of that nature. And so you can write it based on that. But look at what activities you're doing on a weekly, monthly basis over the last 7 months. And that's what's going to tell you what's going to be bringing you business in the future. That's for sure. So with this fictitious person, you're going to want to take a really, really hard look at what's going on here. And the first thing you're going to want to ask yourself is what's working? In this case, it's all the activities inside the sphere category. Whatever this person is doing here, it's working. So maybe that's pop buys. Maybe it's got some in the chat. Callie, handwritten cards. Abso-freaking-lutely. Handwritten cards are the greatest thing that's ever been invented since social media was invented, because people don't get them anymore. So they're so, like, they love it. And so that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe you're doing handwritten cards to your A+ people, you're pop buying people, you're taking people out for coffee, you're taking people out for lunch. You're doing that on a weekly basis, not a ton. You know, you're not spending an entire 8-hour working day taking people out to lunch. That would be a waste of time. But you're doing an hour here, an hour there, and you're meeting with people, and you're notching everything in. You're like, yeah, met with 2 people today, met with 3 people today, met with just the 1 person today, went to a networking event today, whatever. You're doing all of that inside of your sphere. All of that is working. That is awesome. Now, one of the only problems with the sphere category might be what? Take a stab at it, ladies and gents. What is the one problem with the sphere category?
They take advantage of you.
Yeah, I guess, sure. Yeah,
Well,
they
they'll
can.
take advantage of your time and effort. And I know a lot of people that want to buy and things like that. But the closer you are to some of these, sometimes they do take advantage. But they're not always consistent buyers either. They're not always there where the other forms are always there.
Yeah, yeah. What else? What's the one problem?
You only
this-
know who you know.
Yeah, yeah. The size of your network can only get so big. The other thing that is a real problem with your business coming from Sphere is that it's not really leverageable, right? If somebody invited you to a party and you're like, I don't freaking want to do that. You know, I just spent a week in Omaha. I'm partied out. I don't want to go out this weekend. But you know that it's like a good kind of networking event. You know a bunch of the people there. They're at that time in their life where they're all buying houses and popping out babies and everything. You're like, damn, this would be a really good networking event, but I don't feel like going. Can you send your assistant? Nope, can't do that. And it's difficult because you can't just create more from your sphere. You have to actively put more time in to be able to get a higher rate of return. You have to put more time in. Whereas a section like online, you can press a button and triple your leads. With a section like prospecting, you can hire and train people to do it for you. You can't really do that when it comes to your sphere. That's the only downside. Now, there are some things that you can leverage inside of your sphere category. Like, for instance, we were talking about automatic drip emails, newsletters, bombs, things of that nature can be extremely powerful and can help you, win back some of your time. Because if this is somebody that I'm coaching and I'm seeing that they're a little bit behind their goals, they're doing great in their sphere, I'm going to tell them, okay, you need to multiply your time. So how you're going to do that is by creating leverage for a lot of the other things that you're doing that maybe a machine can do instead of you. And then you can double down and focus on things that you have to be physically present for, like those networking events, like those parties you don't feel like going to, like you know what I mean? Those types of things where you really have to be there. Somebody calls you for an evaluation. You're like, oh God, I know you're not selling for 3 years, but you've been a great referral source for me. So I'm going to go. All those things that you have to physically be there for, you can't skip on that. I want you to double it. So in order to double it, you're going to need to find time elsewhere. So you do that by, maybe it's incorporating some AI, maybe it's, creating some better content for your newsletters, creating bomb videos for people, automating that in some way. There's always ways of doing that. And then freeing up your time to be able to do the stuff that you can't hire out or replace, the irreplaceable stuff. The idea right now, guys, and this is something I've heard a bazillion times, is it's harder now, right? This is what I'm hearing from 90% of people in 90% of the markets. It's harder now for whatever reason. In our market, it's because the inventory is still low, but the buyers got cut in half. So now it's a more balanced market. A lot of people aren't used to that. A lot of people are used to the fact that you slap a listing online and tomorrow it's sold. And that's not the case in some areas. And it's not the case in some price points. And a lot of the price for us here in Montreal, at least, hasn't adjusted to reflect the insanely high interest rates we're dealing with right now. So that adjustment period has not happened yet. So all that to be said, the running thing that we're telling people is you got to work twice as hard for the same result. The other way to look at it is that you're looking for somebody that's twice as motivated. But let's get back to the first thing I said, which is you have to work twice as hard to get the same result. The good news is by working twice as hard now, you're setting yourself up to when the market does get back to that fiery fight kind of market, You're going to be so prepped. You're going to have such a great database. You're going to be so ready because you've done the hard work. I don't remember who I asked while I was in Omaha, but I asked somebody like how many agents have left in the United States of America. I think it was like something approaching like 80,000 or something like that. It was insane. I don't know about you guys, but that's like music to my ears. I love that. That's so awesome. Because what that shows me is that a lot of people are just not willing to put the work in. A lot of people just looked at it and said, this is hard. This is hard. I don't want to do this. Fine by me. Just means there's less agents, less competition, less bullshit, more opportunity for us. That's the way I'm choosing to look at it. And I invite you to join me on that bus. It's a lot of fun. So what's working? We know that the sphere is what's working. Analyze those activities. Find out where you can spend more time on it. Find out what you can leverage. Okay. Same thing. Your online is working to an extent. What can you be doing more of? What micro activities under online are giving you the best results? Is it, you've got a Boomtown day, maybe you want a second one. Maybe your Boomtown is so freaking tight, your follow-up boss is so clean. You're like, I can handle another one. So you need to go talk to your team lead. Say, hey man, I'm ready. I want a second one. Give me a second one. I'm doing okay with these leads, and look at my account. It's clean as a whistle. Give me more leads. I don't know very many team leads that would say no to that. Someone says, I want more leads, and they're closing them. I'm like, hell yeah, absolutely. Take as many as you want. So that's awesome. So doing more of that, but understanding what point are you getting the results on this? And then you look at something like prospecting. In this situation here, this person is not very good at it. Okay. And we know that in this situation, they've really given it a college try. They've tried their hardest. They're doing it. They're spending the time every single week. I'm tracking it, and they're just not delivering the goods. Well, maybe it's just not for them. There's a million ways to make $1 million. So I'm not going to force somebody to keep spending their time here when if I were to give them a solution where this gets leveraged for 15, 20 bucks an hour or whatever, and they can spend more time here where they're making all of their money, then yeah, that'd be an amazing situation to help them out with. So what I like to call this is kind of bending time. A lot of people say they don't have enough time in the day or whatever. And I think I was talking to Severo in his one-on-one this morning, but I was telling him that now, because of what I just said, which is that it's going to take twice as much effort to get the same result this year. We know that to be true. So where are you going to find the time to work twice as much? Well, there's a couple things. The first thing you can do is you can do this kind of audit and find a place to leverage, or at least a place to just give up. Don't have the money to hire somebody for $20 an hour to replace your prospecting, your outbound prospecting? Fine, just stop doing it. Spend the time on what's giving you a really good positive ROI, a high multiple. We're looking for 3 to 10x minimum. So if prospecting is not doing it for you, get rid of it. As long as you've given it a real try. If you don't know, then you don't know. Okay? So get rid of it. If you can leverage it out and make a return on that investment, cool, do it. If you can't, move on. With the online and sphere, you're looking at now you've just gained 5 to 10 hours every single week that you were messing around with prospecting, that now you can spend more time over here, which is awesome. Now, for the next little while, for a lot of you in tighter markets, or if you're new to the game, it's a tough time right now. So where do you spend most of your time? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of times during the day that we find ourselves doing what I like to call organizational work. So what that might look like is setting up e-alerts, emailing long-term clients, the follow-up on a thing that's not time sensitive. Just all that bullshit that you deal with on a day-to-day basis that you should not be doing during working hours. The only thing that you should be doing during working hours is something where you need to speak to somebody. You need to speak to another agent. You need to speak to a client. You need to, whatever, you do that between the hours of 9 to 6 or 8 to 4, whatever hours you've decided you're going to be working. But guess what, guys? There is no excuse for you to be poor and then at night you're watching Netflix. That is absolutely unacceptable behavior. If you're having a rough year, or if you're anticipating a rough next 6 to 8 months, you have an obligation to yourself, to your family, to your future family, whatever it is. You have an obligation to yourself to take this shit seriously and double the amount of work. And you do that by doing absolutely no organizational work that isn't time sensitive during the day. And you do all of that at night. You have a significant other, your laptop is open. That's what they signed up for. If he starts bitching, well, too bad. You want me to help pay the bills? I'm doing it. I'm right here. She doesn't like it? Too bad. It is what it is. You knew what you signed up for. You knew it wasn't always going to be easy. And my phone's just ringing off the hook all the time. And I'm making $10,000 to $15,000 commission checks like 20 times a year. Yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to get back there. But right now, it's tough. And I need to be working my ass off. And so that's a separate thing, almost dialogue that we should probably talk about on Wednesday, which is preparing one's significant others for a shift in the market and telling them that you're going to need to be working twice as hard to get the same result. So my situation, and you guys can carbon copy this if you guys have little kids, but when I need to work and I know it's like time to put real time in, you know, I'm at the office between 9 and 9:30. I'll stay till, let's say, 4, something like that, pick up kid from daycare, go back, you know, do family stuff till probably around 7 or 8. Then 7 or 8 rolls around and I go back to work to do all of my organizational stuff. All the, you know, Google ad stuff, the Facebook ad stuff, the AI stuff, the email this, the accountant that, the whatever, all of that crap that I absolutely do not need to do during the day, I take care of between the hours of 8 and 2 in the morning. Do I stay up till 2 every single time? No. Sometimes 12:30. I'm like, okay, I'm calling it. But for the most part, it's like 12:30 that'll end up going to bed. And you just repeat, rinse and repeat. But that's how you multiply time. You don't do shit like, you know, binge watch The Witcher because it just came out. You know, you save that for, maybe you watch 1 episode. Maybe, you know, you're in a relationship where they really like to watch certain shows or whatever. So you bang out 1 episode. You watch it from 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Then 9 o'clock rolls around. You're like, gotta go. See you later. And I promise you it'll pay off in the end. That's my promise to you guys, is if you manage to manipulate time and create, you know, 12-hour days and make them feel like you didn't, it will pay you back in the long run. In 6 to 8 months from now, when things start hopefully turning around a little bit, in 24 months when things are back to, you know, this fire market where it's just free, you guys are going to be so well set up because you've got the work ethic from somebody that was raised in the fire. You know what I mean? There's a reason why all the greats in the world have good work ethic, and it's because they were thrown into the fire in some way, shape, or form. So that's all the content I got for you guys. So let's roll into questions. We got questions for 15 minutes. So we can talk about the audit. We can talk about absolutely anything. So, excuse me. Whew, goodness. What do we got? Audit-wise or whatever-wise? Hit me. Out of curiosity, actually, I'll start. Out of curiosity, everybody on the call, if you would be so kind as to put into the chat, what percentage of your business came from Sphere so far this year? 100%. That's awesome. Kristen, 10%. Wow. Steven, all of it. Yeah. 30%. Okay. Very healthy. Adam, 0. Damn. Okay. You guys out here savaging. I love it. Oh, I just moved. Okay. Gotcha. Yep. I totally understand. Ailey, 100%. Yeah. 95. Okay. Wow. What a fun mix. The only person I'm really curious about here. Hold on. Oh, I'm using the wrong thing. Hold on. Jennifer, you said 30%. Can you share the other 2 bucket percentages? 70 from office leads. Very cool. Man, that is awesome. So if you're doing your audit, you're gonna look at, okay, how much time you're spending on those given leads, those Boomtown leads or Follow Up Boss leads or whatever CRM that you're using, and you're saying, okay, how much time have I spent on that? What can I automate? What can I leverage? Where can I spend more time on it? And so one of the only hiccups with online leads is that once you've done all the best practices for those leads, that's it. You can only spend so much time on them before you have to ask for more. So man, if you were on my team, I would be dumping so many leads on you, it'd be insane. I'd be giving you like 100 a day. 70% of your deals are coming from them. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. Awesome. I love the massive spread we've got going on here. It's very cool. Awesome. Go back to questions. What else we got? Now, if you guys have been following along with the audit a little bit, I want to talk to the people who had a high level from their sphere. What kind of things have you done consistently over the last, let's say, 18 to 24 months that you think has, because it sometimes takes that long. It's the same thing with farming. It's almost identical to farming, actually. It takes time for you to cultivate that group of people that refer you business or that come back for you to do business with them regularly. What have you been doing over the last 18 to 24 months to be able to get 100% of your business from your sphere or 95% of your business from your sphere? Callie, you said 100%. What are some things that you're doing consistently over the last like 18 to 20?
I'm really big into handwritten cards, so I do those every single month to pretty much anybody on my Facebook. If they're like around Omaha, within an hour, I'm sending them a card.
That is awesome.
And then I do a lot of events because I like to have fun. And then like coffee dates and stuff like that.
Cool. Do you organize your sphere for the coffee dates? Like, are only like the coolest people or the people that refer you the most getting coffee dates, or how does that work?
Technically, yeah, but I'm not going to say no to anybody really. So
Gotcha. Very cool. Awesome. Who else wants to share? No? Trey, you don't want to share? Haley, you don't want to share? Maybe they're in a noisy place or something. No worries. Anybody get a high percentage of prospecting deals that they'd like to share, kind of their ongoing consistent things that they've been doing for the last 18 to 24 to be able to generate a high level of prospecting? Anybody got that?
I've been making a ton of calls to our database, not only, but I've been doing more outbound prospecting, calling on expired leads, things like that. And I've been actually doing really good on those. Trying to switch from just digging into our pond account and trying to get a little more creative on outbound prospecting.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so you've been doing expired. So how long have you been doing that now for?
About 4 days, and I've only been an agent since February, but I relied heavily on our pond at the beginning to make calls, and now it's getting to where I'm reaching for the higher hanging fruit. So I'm just finding different ways. But yeah, the last 4 days I've gotten calls. I've got 2 of them right now that are interested, and they're pretty big deals. So it's working out so far. I'm gonna multiply that now.
Adam, you got to make me a promise though, okay, buddy? You are not allowed to stop doing those outbound prospecting calls until September 1st is when you're going to pass judgment on that lead source, okay?
I'm going to go all the way through the end. I love this stuff, man. I live for this kind of stuff.
As of August 1st, as of September 1st, you're allowed to pass judgment on it. Okay? So you're able to look at your sample size and be like, hey, what's working, what's not working. Until then, you're not allowed to say shit about it. If it's going like crap, you just grit your teeth, keep going. Because a lot of people just quit before they actually hit gold. They'll be swinging the pickaxe like crazy. They're sweating, of course, metaphorically speaking. They're sweating they're swinging the pickaxe and they're like, yo, man, this is too hard. They drop the pickaxe, they leave the mine. What they don't realize is they were like 8 swings away from striking gold. And
Well,
had
let me
they
say this
struck,
too.
it would keep
Oh,
going.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no, go ahead, buddy. You're good.
Well, on my second call, I actually ended up reaching out. So I did try this, I guess, a few weeks ago. Second call I made, ended up talking to the guy with the third biggest home in the state of Texas, and we're still negotiating on whether or not he's going to let me list it. But it's a multi-million-dollar property, and that was just off 2 phone calls, and he picked
That's
up.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. You got to love those little victories to keep you going. That's great. It's one of the reasons I love real estate is because it's got so many miniature highs along the way. So many little dopamine hits, you know? You make the call, they say yes to the appointment, you're fired up. You go on the appointment, they say yes, they sign the contract, you're fired up. You do an open house, you get a bunch of attention. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. But you get an offer, it's accepted, you're fired up, goes to notary, fired up, get the check, fired up. There's just so many freaking points of getting fired up in this business. It's awesome. But if you, yeah, exactly. John made a joke like he pre-spent all the money, so then the getting the check doesn't last long because it just goes to pay off your visa. But it's an awesome business, guys. I think, you know, it's all, you know, doing an audit like this, it sucks. It's kind of like doing your taxes at the end of the year. You're looking at all the things that you should be doing more of or doing less of or whatever. And it can be a little gloom and doom, but you got to remember that we are in just the most beautiful business ever. It's an amazing vehicle to do anything that you want. It's one of the most lucrative businesses you can be in. And it's my favorite because there's absolutely no ceiling on how much money you can make. Every other job that you can get right now, which by the way, you're probably nobody here is qualified for any other job. Not me, that's for sure. I couldn't go out and just get a job. There's no one in the world would hire me. They'd be like, who are you? Like, what is it that you do? You sold houses? Who gives a shit? So, first of all, even if you were to go out and get a job, they would tell you exactly how much you're going to make this year. And there's nothing you can do to change that for at least a year. After a year, well, you're in for it now. Now you're in the money. They might give you a 6% raise. Doesn't even keep up with inflation. Meanwhile, you look at our situation here, at least in Montreal, our commission has gone up. At least on our team, the commission has gone up by like 20, 30%. And because we're awesome. Yeah. He's like, why is that? I'm like, I don't really have an answer aside from that we're awesome. No, it's because we're taking listings at 5 and keeping 3. That's why. But in addition to that, our average sale price has doubled in the last like 4 years. So we're making hand over fist money compared to 3-4 years ago. So yes, we're going to have to work a little bit harder right now, but guess what? We're going to get handsomely compensated for the work that we're putting in. Like completely undeserved amounts of money. Not because we're not delivering great value. We definitely are. And you have to believe that as well. But there is no gig other than sales where you're massively compensated for your level of education. Like your level of education is so outweighed by how much you're compensated in real estate. It's insane. And I don't say that to shit on the industry at all. I say that to remind everybody how blessed they are. So I hope you guys remember that moving forward, because it's a beautiful business we're in, and I'm excited. I'm always excited. I'm fired up. What else we got? We can do 1 or 2 more questions if people got them. No? All right, guys. Well, that was super fun. Love you all. See you Wednesday. We're doing open dialogue, so bring your questions, bring your scripts you want to work on, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on Wednesday. Later.